Well, here we are on day 4 of our daily reflections this week, and we're going to be looking at God's grace in our weakness. And in this passage, we see God's directive to Ananias, a disciple in Damascus, revealing his plan to use Paul, formerly known as Saul. And despite Saul's notorious past as a persecutor of Christians, God shows his intentions to transform Saul into a chosen instrument to carry his name before Gentiles, kings, and the children of Israel. And this demonstrates the depth of God's grace. He did not only forgive Saul, but he also entrusts him with a critical mission. And this scenario really underscores a fundamental truth about God's character. His grace is not limited by human frailty. Instead, it is often most powerfully displayed in our weaknesses. So, God choosing of Saul illustrates that our past does not disqualify us from God's future plans. Rather, our weaknesses and failures can become the backdrop against which God's grace shines most brightly. So as we reflect on these areas of your past or aspects of your character that you feel might disqualify you from being used by God, recognize that these are exactly where God's grace can abound. Accept that His grace is sufficient for you and that His power is made perfect in weakness. 2 Corinthians 12:9. So like Ananias, be open to God's guidance, even when it seems counterintuitive. You see, Ananias had reservations about approaching Saul, knowing his history, but obeyed God's call. So consider how you might need to trust God's plan over your own understanding, especially when called to engage with difficult people or situations. Seeing beyond the past, you see, this is where God looked at Saul's past and saw what he could become, an apostle to the Gentiles. So let's challenge ourselves to look beyond our own mistakes or the pasts of others, and let's focus instead on the potential for transformation and growth through God's grace. And just as Saul was given a specific mission, reflect on what unique roles that you might play in God's plan. And pray for the discernment and the courage to step into those roles, regardless of how unqualified you feel. So as we consider our weaknesses, not as barriers, but as opportunities for God to work through us, let's actively rely on God in areas where we feel weak, asking Him to use these for His glory. So by applying these insights, we can deepen our appreciation for the magnitude of God's grace and develop a more profound commitment to living out His purposes. Confident that He will use every part of our lives, especially our weaknesses, to manifest His glory. What a beautiful reflection this morning as we look at Ananias and Paul and how God has worked through these men's lives, and it's become a story that has continued throughout history. So as we reflect today, let us reflect upon that, and I look forward to sharing with you more tomorrow as we keep going on this walk through this reflections the week.